You reach for the light switch without even thinking about it every night. Same motion, same reflex, automatic as blinking. But the real reason you do that is far stranger than you don't like the dark. You don't fear the dark because it's dark. You fear it because of what darkness used to mean. For almost the entire span of human history, night was the one stretch of every day when your ancestors could not see what was hunting them, and some part of your brain has never fully let that go. Go back 200,000 years, no streetlights, no locks, no walls thick enough to keep anything out. When the sun dropped below the horizon, your ancestors lost the single advantage that had carried them through the daylight hours: their eyes. Human vision is built for sunlight, for color, for detail. It is not built for darkness. Lions hunt at night, leopards hunt at night, hyenas hunt at night. Early humans, brilliant as they already were, simply did not. That one mismatch, being a daytime creature stranded inside a nighttime world, might be the oldest fear you carry in your body. So what did your ancestors do about it? They built a wall out of light and called it fire. Fire did not just keep bodies warm on cold nights. It kept an entire species alive long enough to become what it is today. Harvard anthropologist Richard Wrangham has spent decades studying how the control of fire reshaped the human body and brain, from the way cooked food unlocked more calories to something quieter and just as important: safety after sunset. Cooking softened food, shortened digestion, and freed up energy that used to go straight to the gut. Some of that spared energy, Wrangham argues, helped fund the growth of a much larger brain, but none of that mattered if you didn't survive the night to use it. A ring of firelight pushed the darkness and whatever lived inside it back to the edge of vision. For the first time in the story of your species, night stopped being pure exposure. It became something else entirely: a room with walls made of light, and for a few hours the predators stayed outside them. The day itself got longer too, in a way that had nothing to do with the sun. Waking hours that used to end the moment the light failed could now stretch on for another hour or two or three, lit by nothing but a small controlled flame. And once that room existed, something happened inside it that had nothing to do with survival at all. Anthropologist Polly Wiesner spent years studying the Ju-Huansi people of the Kalahari Desert, and she found something remarkable hiding in an ordinary evening. Daytime conversation among hunter-gatherers, she found, is mostly practical. Complaints about who did too little work, arguments over food, logistics about tomorrow. But nighttime conversation, once the fire was lit, was almost a different language entirely. Stories, myths, songs about ancestors, spirits, distant lands, and the shape of the world itself. The dark hadn't just been lit up, it had been turned into a stage. Why would the most dangerous hours of the day turn into the most imaginative ones? Because firelight gave your ancestors something they had never had before: hours with nothing left to do, no hunting, no gathering, no walking, no digging, no building, just faces lit orange against the black, and voices, and the kind of imagination that only seems to switch on once the body finally stops moving. The fear of the dark did not vanish. It got surrounded, contained inside a circle of light, and in that containment something new had room to grow. Generation after generation, night after night, around fires that no longer exist but somehow still shape the mind you carry around today. Here's the twist almost nobody expects, though. Even with fire, even with brick walls and deadbolts and a phone flashlight sitting in your pocket right now, your fear of the dark never actually went away. And that is not a flaw in the system. That is the entire point of the system. Evolutionary psychiatrist Randolph Nessa has a name for this kind of design. He calls it the smoke detector principle. Think about how a smoke detector actually works. A detector that goes off too often at burnt toast, at steam from a shower, is annoying. A detector that fails to go off even once during an actual fire is fatal. So every smoke detector ever built is designed to lean toward false alarms, because a false alarm costs you a few seconds of irritation, while a missed real threat costs you everything. Nessie argues your fear response was shaped by natural selection to work the exact same way. That is why an empty house at 2 in the morning feels completely different from the same empty house at 2 in the afternoon. Nothing in the room has changed, no new threat has walked in, but somewhere in your evolutionary past, the ancestors who felt a chill at every unexplained creak in the dark were the ones who survived to have children. Not the calm ones, not the brave ones, the nervous ones. You are the descendant of people who got spooked generation after generation for a very long time. Notice how early this shows up in you, too. Nobody has to teach a child to be afraid of the dark. It appears on its own, usually right around the age a child starts being able to walk off alone in almost every culture researchers have ever studied, regardless of whether that child grew up in a city apartment, a farmhouse, or a village with no electricity at all. A fear that consistent, that unlearned is not a coincidence. It is a design feature installed on a schedule right when a small, slow, defenseless body first becomes capable of wandering out of sight of the people meant to protect it. And there's another piece of the story most people have never even heard of. Historian A. Roger Ekirch spent years combing through centuries of diaries, court depositions, and medical records from before electric light existed, and he found something that quietly rewrites what you think you know about a normal night's sleep. Before the modern era, most people across Europe did not sleep in one long, unbroken block. They slept in two segments, a first sleep and a second sleep, separated by an hour or more of calm, deliberate wakefulness in the dark. During that gap, people prayed, talked with a spouse, tended the fire, interpreted dreams, or simply lay there in the dark, thinking, wide awake, with no fear that anything was wrong with them. Some records from that era even had a name for the gap itself, describing it simply as the watch, the quiet hour when a household stayed half alert in the dark before drifting back down into a second, deeper sleep. Ekirch's research points to something else, too. Once cheap, reliable artificial light spread through cities in the 19th century, that two-part pattern quietly disappeared within a couple of generations, replaced by the single unbroken block of sleep you were taught to think of as normal. The rhythm didn't vanish because it was unhealthy. It vanished because the dark stopped forcing people to lie still inside it. So, if you have ever woken at 3 in the morning for no clear reason and felt a strange, low-grade unease lying there in the silence, that might not be a malfunction at all. That might be one of the oldest rhythms your body still remembers, resurfacing in a world that no longer has a name for it. Which raises an uncomfortable question. What if the dark itself was never really the thing you were afraid of? What if what you were actually afraid of is being unable to see, unable to predict, unable to control whatever happens next? Darkness simply happens to be the easiest way to trigger that particular feeling, because for nearly the entire evolutionary history of your species, darkness was the truest version of exactly that. Nothing needs to be hiding under the bed. The absence of information was always the real monster, and in a quiet way, it still is. Look at what still spikes your heart rate today. In a world your ancestors could not have imagined, a power outage in a neighborhood with zero recorded crime, a hallway light that flickers twice and goes still, a sound from another room when you live alone, none of these carry any real danger anymore, and honestly, almost none of them ever did, statistically speaking. But your nervous system was never built for statistics. It was built for a world where hesitation got you killed and where a little unnecessary paranoia kept you breathing long enough to pass that paranoia down. And here is the part that should genuinely unsettle you just a little. You live inside the safest environment your species has ever constructed. Locked doors, street lights on every corner, emergency numbers stored on a device that fits in your palm. And still, some nights, you check the closet before you sleep. You still glance at the window one more time, just to be sure. Not because you are irrational, because somewhere behind your ribs, a piece of software older than language, older than fire itself, is still quietly running its original code, and it has not gotten the message that the lions are gone. Think about how much of your adult life is still quietly arranged around this. The nightlight you keep plugged in down the hallway long after anyone would admit to needing it. The hotel room where you leave the bathroom light on and the door cracked in a city you've never even visited before. The tent on a camping trip where every snapped twig outside sounds louder than it has any right to be. None of it is really about monsters. All of it is the same ancient request asked in 1,000 different disguises. Let me see. Just let me see what's out there. And the fear will loosen its grip on its own. Maybe that is the strangest part of being human. You built fire, then cities, then satellites, bright enough to light up the night from orbit. You solved the actual problem your ancestors spent 200,000 years running from, and your body never got the memo. It still keeps watch, some nights more than others. It still runs the alarm, even when there's nothing left to alarm you about. It still, on certain quiet nights, makes you reach for the switch before your conscious mind has even finished asking why. You reach for the light switch without even thinking about it, not because you are afraid of the dark, because some ancient, careful part of you is still standing guard at the edge of the firelight, keeping watch over a world that stopped needing a guard a very long time ago.